Hello there everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joesephyr and welcome to another Should You Pull video for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. Now today's video we're going to be talking about a very hotly anticipated character, their rework, their brand new LD, their brand new BT, and of course the event that comes along with them. And as an FF5 fan, I'm very, very excited for this, not only because he's quite so hotly anticipated, but because he's FF5's main character. Of course, we're talking about Bartz. Now, Bartz is somebody that will have a lot of longevity going forward, and I'm sure a lot of you already know that I'm going to be recommending this character. But why is that? What is it that makes Bartz quite so popular in the grand community and the grand scheme of things? If you'd like to find out more about Bartz and, of course, his event, then stay tuned and keep on watching. Now before we get started, don't forget to check out all of my social links in the description box below, including Twitter, Twitch, Discord and Patreon. Over on Twitch, obviously I stream 5 days a week, so you're more than welcome to come and find me on there, streaming every Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia event that comes out, as well as Final Fantasy XIV and my Final Fantasy Count-Up, where I've just finished Final Fantasy IV, which means this Friday, which is the day that Bartz is released on Dissidia Opera Omnia, I will also be starting Final Fantasy V. So this Friday coming will officially be #Bartz Day, so definitely come and join in if you'd like to come and watch me doing that kind of thing. When it comes to Patreon, I always shout out one of my patrons every time I release a video, and today that person is going to be DJ Laws, who has been on my Patreon for a little while and is a massive fan of Lightning, as you can see on their title card. Now I'm thank you and massive appreciation goes out to you, DJ Laws, and of course all of my other patrons who help to support this channel and keep me able to do these things as often as I do. And if you'd like a title card just like DJ Laws has, made just for you, to go in the credits of all of my videos, other benefits as well, such as being a part of Would You Pull, being a part of voice chats we all do together, and plenty of other stuff, then perhaps you might like to join in and become a patron yourself. It's all in the links in the description box below. Don't forget to check out Tombury Troop, Rem, all of the other sort of resources available to you for Dissidia Opera Omnia. They are all linked in the description box below, as well as all of the other content creators out there besides myself. So let's take a quick look at the banners and Bartz, of course, and what his rework LD and BT do for him that make him so highly sought after by a large prominent sort of portion of the community. So the banners themselves, the first one will actually contain Penelo as well as Bartz. So you'll get Bartz's BT only, Penelo's EX LD and the rest of her kit, as well as Cyan and Zell's EX. Now, honestly, I'm not going to cover Penelo here because she doesn't actually get anything new from this banner, and if you want to know more about her, then you can go back and check my Should You Pull video for Penelo at the time, because a lot of that stuff is still applicable to her now, as one of the earlier kind of level 80s, early LD call abilities, that kind of thing. She's still good, like she's still very good, but given how many of the banners in Bartz's batches are going to be quite so demanding on your resources, if I were you, if you've lived this long without Penelo, I would go without her and just go pulling for Bartz instead. Because while Penelo is very good, so is Bartz, and so is Tifa, and so is Galoof, and you're going to want to get hold of those characters first. If you have some leftover resources at the end, then sure, go for Penelo, but I wouldn't consider her a priority. And then the second banner will also contain all of Bartz's kit, so BT, EX, LD, etc., as well as Seymour and Steiner EX. Now the EXs here are not very good, being frank, like Cyan, Steiner, Seymour, Zell, none of them are good. You're pulling here for Bartz. Now, Bartz's rework, like Bartz has had more reworks than my hair color, so but like this one does make a pretty significant difference. They've all made a pretty big difference to him up until now, but this one is very good as well. So double hand and missile both get additional uses, so they now have 9 uses apiece, and they also only take 1 use before they get their plus variants. Now the plus variants don't actually add all that much to them, it just increases the potency and the brave overflow on them and stuff like that, and also they extend the amount of time that the buff that they put on is on. But the buff itself has been reworked pretty significantly. Now a common misconception is that Bartz requires his LD to get hold of a particular buff that he has, and he actually doesn't require that at all. It's the rework that carries this buff, not his LD. So to go over what the skills themselves do quickly, they're actually very simple. Double hand is a battery followed by a 5-hit brave HP attack with 50% splash damage. Nice and simple. Missile is a multi-hitting brave HP attack, also with splash damage, not as much of it, but it also has a gravity-based effect, which is something that you'll see a lot of in Bartz's kit, particularly with his LD, in that he's very capable of just draining enemy battery very quickly. And then it's also got a bit of party battery on top of it as well. It does quite a lot all in one go for one move. And then they both give you the new Adventurous Heart buff, which consolidates the buffs that he had before, which were Max Brave and Speed, into one buff. But they also enchant Bartz for wind, just Bartz, not the party, and also reduce all enemies' wind resistance. So it's a wind in peril, but it's not attached to a debuff. This is an aura on Bartz. And the reason this is as important as it is because it means that enemies that are resistant to imperil or can't be imperiled or anything like that are still affected by this. There are a couple of events, including Bartz's own Lufenia, where enemies are weak to, like, they want you to do wind damage, or in DE Transcendence 5, which will be a big deal, ask for weakness damage but are immune to imperil. And Bartz is therefore used to get around that by making them weak to wind without actually having to use the imperil at all. So that is why the wind in peril is as big a deal as it is. But that being said, it's useful anyway, because if you have, like, it's not taking up a debuff slot for a start, which means that it's handy. You're able to take him along with other debuffers. The biggest thing that Bartz has going for him is quite how much he does, despite the fact that he doesn't really impede on anything that your party is doing. Doesn't take up debuff slots. He's got Enchant Imperial on the go. The only thing he doesn't do is enchant the party for wind, but later down the line he actually does get that ability, so that's really nice on top of it as well. The other thing I will mention before we go into the EX and the LD, etc., is that he has a World of Illusions weapon called Noir Caliber. This you can pick up from the weapons token shop for 10 weapon tokens, and you're going to want this because it has a party aura on top of it. Now, between this and his C50, which is his simple mastery, it basically increases party stats. So before we've even looked at his LD or anything, he gives a good attack buff, a decent initial bravery, so max bravery, speed, brave overflow. He gives a lot of really nice stuff without even trying. His EX is probably the weakest thing about him, but even this isn't bad based on this bit, the fast recast rate. His longevity is amazing on the back of the fact that for every 2 skills you're using, maximum, like including HP pluses, etc., you're going to be able to use this. It's not the strongest move in the game, in all fairness. It is a 4-hit brave HP attack that he gains bravery from. He puts an aura up that again boosts the allies' bravery, so like you're able to get a bit more brave overflow for the party, and it raises his attack up, and it does splash damage. It's nothing major. It does also have more of the gravity-based stuff, which is good. Like, more gravity is always good. It's great for any enemies that gain buttloads of bravery and have ways of reducing the bravery, the damage that they take. It's just useful to have. His HP plus then becomes a brave HP attack, the party batteries, which you're probably not going to use that often, on the back of the fact that he has quite so many ways of keeping hold of his skills. Now, his LD, elemental attack, if you've used Kadaj's EX, very similar kind of thing here. What this does is it reduces all bravery to 0 for enemies, and then does an AoE brave HP attack, and it uses this twice, and it does split damage, so it's not the most damaging thing in the world, but then you get another buff out of it, which is really, really nice. So you get Good Luck Charm, or Lucky Charm, or whatever it ends up being called for global version. So you get brave damage increased by 20% for the party, brave overflow increased again, and party attack increased again, which is fantastic. And then he also gets extra HP damage dealt on his attacks. He also increases the amount of AoE damage he does, so splash damage, and given that both of his skills do it, so does his EX, you actually get a lot of AoE damage off of this buff on its own. He then gets Brave Refund, and he gets more duration on his buffs. Now, this is actually really cool in the fact that, like, he just has to stand there. Like, he's an amazing aura bot. He gets loads out of it. Actually, from his LD board, you also get this when you come into play as well. So while Lucky Charm or Good Luck Charm lasts for 12 turns, you get 6 turns of it just by using the LD boards, and you come in with it. So you don't have to use the LD the second you come in like you do with a lot of characters. Not only this, but you get a Brave attack plus, which is an HP attack plus. I think it's they got this the wrong way around, to be honest, but I'll come to that in a second. And then the Brave attack plus is, again, 20% Brave drain, so straight gravity damage down to 20%. Then a 3-hit Brave HP attack that happens to increase the party bravery, so does a battery attack based on HP damage dealt and on attack. So it's just a nice battery attack. Because the reason that it's doing it to the bravery attack is because you get a different HP plus from using the LD that you only get once. Now, I would have thought, honestly, that because the bravery attack plus is the HP attack, I would have put this the other way around, but it doesn't matter. So the HP attack plus drains all bravery damage to 0 to your opponent, and then does a 3-hit brave HP attack to single target. So basically you get 2 lots of the thing you're using the LD for. So honestly, like, part of the reason that Kadage's AEX is so good is because enemies that gain loads of bravery and then get dealt damage, you can just drain it off and then break them. Well, you get a similar thing with Bartz's LD, but obviously you only get 3 uses of this, well, you get 6 uses of it technically because the HP plus, but because you don't get as many uses of this, you're going to want to be very sporadic about it. But now, Bartz's burst. Bartz is a character that definitely wants his burst. He goes from being a very good character, like a really nice aura bot, really just pleasant to have, to absolutely monstrous once he's got his burst. So if you don't have his burst, he's like a character that you will use, but he is not busted. To be honest with you, he doesn't appear busted by looking at him with even his entire kit. The reason Bartz is so good is because he fits into so many events, like so many. So by and large, he is considered a meta character, busted character, whatever you want to call it, because not only this, but he does come back later having a burst plus, and and you're gonna want this now because he's still used in JP after getting his burst plus. So in terms of longevity, there aren't many characters, if any, that stack up to Bartz. Like Paladin Cecil, is comparable to this. Now, with the burst, it's an AoE Brave HP attack delivered twice with split damage, so that's fine. But the burst effect lasts for 8 turns, which, given that Bartz is not a turn shenanigans based character like, say, Lightning or Terra, that lasts a long time, considering. And you get a lot out of it as well. So basically for every one of Bartz's turns that he takes, this levels up. So you get 5 turns of the full burst effect, which is max brave and attack up by 30%. Then brave damage increased by 30% and brave damage limit by 20%. Then increase HP damage by 20% and refunds bravery equal to 50% of the damage dealt. So with this burst up, characters like Terra will go completely crazy. If you have Cecil and Bartz together, your HP damage goes mad. It's like putting them together, like Bartz is just good at so many things at once in a similar vein to Cecil. But because he has that gravity damage as like the basis of his kit, he's usable in so many different events that you can't miss out on him. He is just a fantastic character. That's not to say that if you don't get Bartz, you will not be able to play the game. That is not true for any character in this game. But he is hyped up for a reason, because when he does eventually come back with access to his Burst Plus, he then gets access to being able to have that burst ability up twice, because you can use the burst ability on its own if you've used Bartz, or if you have the Burst Plus at max. So that's 2 lots of that crazy buff that you get, and he gets reworked so that he gets Wind Enchant for the party. So not only is he doing all of this stuff with the nice auras, now he's able to do the Wind Enchant in Peril on his own without the need for things like Fujin Call or anything like that. You get so much consolidated into one little package that he's just very hard to turn down. Is he like a one-man army that's going to carry you through like crazy amounts of damage the whole time? No, but then neither was Cecil. Like, Cecil's damage is perfectly average. Bartz's damage is better than Cecil's because he just churns it out quite so frequently. His brave shaving capabilities are second to none, and he's able to just like neuter many enemies very quickly through use of his LD and his HP++. He's just a very, very Swiss Army knife character. The only thing he's missing is HP healing. But because he has a burst that can like take advantage of the damage situation, bringing another character along that can do that will do wonders for you. Now, even Bartz's cool abilities are actually pretty good as well. So one of the reasons that I'd say you don't necessarily have to have Bartz, as much as I would recommend him to every player in the game, is that his regular cool ability is actually very useful, including within DE Transcendence 5 if you're using a character like Yang, who can benefit from it by dealing wind damage and being able to take advantage of that as much as you can. So basically you get Missile, which is the gravity damage, followed by the Brave HP attacks, so everything gets reworked to do like multiple HP attacks, which is fantastic. And then you get Enchant Wind and Wind Imperil, just off of the cool ability. That's his basic cool ability as well. It's actually pretty good, even if you don't have the LD. His LD call, though, also really good. Like, genuinely very strong. Like, even if you're not using Bartz in your party, you might end up wanting to use the call ability as well. Because if you could use Kadaj's EX as a call ability, you would, right? Well, you can. It's just attached to Bartz instead of Kadaj. So it reduces all bravery to 0 on your enemies, so much like a Miditelian does. Then does the AoE Brave HP attack, which Miditelians doesn't do, nor do you have that clogged up, kind of mediocre but debuff issue that a Miditelian has. And then you also get Brave damage up for over 20%, attack up, and overflow up. It's just nice. And that's for 6 turns as well. Like 6 turns from both of these is good stuff. Like, so this is the thing. Bartz is just good at everything. The only thing he doesn't really do is heal. And that's fine, because there's so many ways of getting around that now. You can stick Bartz and Aerith together, and then your damage dealer, and just go to town, and you'll be fine. And if you have Bartz's burst, you don't even need to bring another burst character with you. You could bring an LD-based damage dealer. Bartz just fits in to so many party compositions that it's very hard to turn him down. There are very few Wind Absorb missions, because Wind is actually very rare. It's only really attached to Bartz and Fujin, and it doesn't come on a lot of other characters until like Sid FF7 way down the line and stuff like that, who is very good when he gets his rework. But it's not often that you can't bring Bartz along, despite the fact that he is attached to a particular element. Now, his high armor, he has Unity Keys though, which is just the icing on the cake. And a lot of people suggest not picking up the HA Plus for Bartz, based on the fact that it's not party-wide. However, I would argue that given how frequently, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but given how frequently I plan on using Bartz, the fact that he increases his bravery damage by 25% and then only 10% for the HP damage limit, I think that because he's going to be hitting quite so hard, you're going to be bringing him along that frequently. Squeezing out as much damage as I can get from him seems like a good option. I mean, let me know in the comments below whether you think that Bartz's Tunic Plus is a waste of your Lufenia books, etc., or whether you're planning on saving for, say, Tifa, because I know a lot of people are saving for Tifa for that. But I am of the opinion that I think that Bartz is a worthwhile investment, purely on the basis of how often you're going to use him, which really is the metric by which you should be judging whether you're going to be using HA Plus or not. Artifacts wise, he has a C50 that boosts your party stats, so just do it. And then attack 108 because, well, why wouldn't you? And then, as I said earlier, his LD boards allow you to start the fight with the Good Luck Charm up, and also makes it so that the LD attack itself hits with 2 HP attacks, which is lovely to have. Okay, so now that we've broken down Bartz and quite why everybody wants him so badly, let's have a look at the mission that comes along with him. And it's actually quite a simple event, even if it's not necessarily easy, unless, of course, you have Bartz, where I imagine that because quite so many people are pulling for Bartz, that this shouldn't be quite so big a problem of an event for you. But you'll be fighting against the Wild Shearer Bears, which, if you remember from Kieran's Lost Chapter, can be a bit of a pain in the backside. And the idea with this is that after certain HP thresholds, they'll gain large bravery and reduce all brave damage to 1, so very similar to what Kadaj's event did. So for obvious reasons, Kadaj is actually very good for this event as well, it's just that Bartz is sadly better for it, and lots of people will have Bartz. They will cleanse all of their debuffs as well at HP thresholds, so 80, 60, 50 and 30%, and then they'll put up that barrier at all of those points, apart from when they hit half HP, where they'll start gaining vast amounts of bravery after every time they take a turn. So the idea is that you would use Bartz, and actually Penelo, because Penelo's EX is also a reduced bravery to 0 type deal, if you remember her as well, is that you just gravity damage, reduce to 0, break, deal with that. Actually not too bad past that. They have some pretty nasty attacks that delay you, and you can't delay them, so that's important to note, but you can delay through breaking. So if you want to be really filthy about it, you can actually take a friend Sephiroth BT and Terra, and either Fujin Call or even Bartz Call for wind damage, because the Lufenia orb asks for wind damage. You can actually just like cheese it that way. Just take a Sephiroth like burst friend and then Terra your way to victory, and that will work. And then if you've got Paladin Cecil, Bartz, and like I said, Bartz Call on its own will work here because it has the wind enchant on the party, so just don't use it on Terra. Use it on, say, Yang or Paladin Cecil, and therefore you'll have your wind damage. And then you can just make sure you bring correct call abilities. So instant break call abilities such as Caius, Jack, a mid-Italian, Bartz LD call, things like that will all work very nicely here, as long as you're able to break those enemies at the points in which they like bring their barriers up. But if you don't want to do it cheesy way or anything like that, I think that you'll fall into one of two camps. You'll either have Bartz and you'll be able to just get rid of their bravery through use of his LD and HP plus very frequently, or you can cheese it if you want to. Other than that, you're probably just going to use characters that deal a lot of damage, and very quickly, so you can just bring Paladin Cecil, Terra, Garland, even though they're immune to like delay, Garland still churns out damage like nobody's business. It's very, very strong. However, do bear in mind that these guys are weak, are immune to elemental resist down. So this is an example of what I was saying with Bartz, where the Imperil Aura comes in handy because you can't inflict it as a debuff to the enemies. So that's one way to get around that. But other than that, like I said, I have a strong feeling that the majority of players will be either pulling for Bartz or using a Sephiroth Terra cheese to get around it. So I would say this is the big question of the video as to whether I think you should be pulling on Bartz, but honestly, like, I don't want to make a joke video and say, yes, you should pull for Bartz, because I actually think it's easier to explain why players should be pulling for Bartz, because he actually is just very good at a lot of things, as opposed to just being a one-man army like Lightning when she came out, or Aranea when she first came out, that just destroys everything in the game. You're still going to have to be cerebral and actually think about your play, but Bartz just goes in so many teams that it's really hard to not encourage people to pull on it. And I mean everyone. He does pretty much everything you would want an offensive support character to do. He increases, I mean, he doesn't have HP damage up in anything but his burst. That's kind of sad. Pretty much the only fault I have for him, because he does still have that, it's just attached to his burst. You are going to want his burst, though, if you are pulling for Bartz, because with just the LD, he's just a very good aura bot. With the burst, he becomes an exceptionally strong aura bot due to the longevity of his burst effect, and due to the fact that he's one of the first characters to get a BT+, at which point he then gets propelled into being arguably the best character in the game. And when that comes out, he also gets released alongside Ace BT+, where you're probably going to want to put resources into him as well, because he's really good. So you don't want to end up having to split your resources across those two banners. So getting hold of Bartz's LD now is a very prudent move. That being said, don't go chasing his pity or his pity for his burst right away. Don't token it, resist the urge. You don't have to have Bartz's BT for his event. You need wind damage and you need instant break. All of that comes with his LD. The reason I say that is because there are two other banners that are exceptionally strong characters that come with Bartz's burst, and they are Tifa and Galoof. Palamon Edwards' banner isn't something to sniff at either if you have neither character. It's not great, as it's nowhere near as great as the other two, but it's still a decent banner. Palam's actually very underrated, but Tifa and Galoof are characters that people are going to want to pull for, so you don't have to pull for the burst here. You are, however, going to want to pull for the LD. Penelo, I would leave if you don't already have her, given that she has nothing new that comes with this banner, but she is still a very good character. So if you get all of the other characters through some miracle without like having to spend too much, then sure, you could go back for Penelo. Her LD call's still really good. She's still really good. Though I have found I've not needed to use her as much as I thought I was going to up until this point. But when it comes to Bartz, it's so hard to not just go yes to everything. He counters so many of Lufenia's mechanics through gravity damage, instant break, massive auras, braveries from multiple places, an imperil that gets around like imperil resistance. He does so many things. People talk about, like I said this with the Fujin video, people say, oh, like, you know, he doesn't have party wind enchant. He doesn't need it. if you take it doesn't have to be wind damage that makes him good. You could bring Ignis as the call for Bartz, and he'd still do really well because you get the fire, enchant, and imperil for the party, and you get HP damage on top of it. Trust me, he doesn't need Fujin to function. It's a nice extra, but he doesn't need it. He's usable from now up until BT Plus starts, and then 2 weeks after BT Plus starts, he gets his BT Plus, at which point he becomes amazing again. In terms of long-term investment, Bartz is one of the best characters you could pull for in this game. And now finally it's time for Would You Pull, the section of the video where you, the viewer, get your chance to make your voice heard and let everyone know whether you would or wouldn't pull on any given banner and why. So once again, a massive thank you goes out to all of my patrons for casting their votes and their comments. Now I can only feature a few comments obviously per video because obviously otherwise the video would be an hour long. But I get so many comments from you guys and it's really massively appreciated. And I've had comments from people in my Patreon or in the Would You Pull polls and stuff that say that they find the fact that they have so many people commenting on why they're pulling on a banner, etc., really valuable. So it's something that obviously, like as a benefit for Patreon as an added thing, you could be able to have access to the full sort of database of everyone else's opinions as well as just mine. So it's very helpful to everybody as a whole. So thank you all very much for your comments. Now, I don't think it's very surprising to see that a large number of people are pulling on Bartz. So we're going to go straight to numbers. 71% of people say they're going to be using gems on this banner. 24% say they're going to be using 100 or more tickets. 4% said less than 100 tickets, and 2% said no. So there is at least one person in my database that is not pulling for Bartz. Personally, I'm not taking any risks. I'm going straight in with gems here, and honestly, given that I'm going to spoil this now, I'm spending gems on 3 of Bartz's banners. I damn well hope I get that BT and don't have to spend burst tokens, but if I have to, I will, because I want it that much. It helps that FF5 is one of my favourite games, and Bartz happens to be really powerful, so no arguments there. But let's go into the comments here. Aurelius here says, spending gems, he's meta, he's a favourite, he's a model, he looks like Linda Evangelista, I eat him up every time. Provides so much roll coverage, he buffs, has good auras, he imperils, he debuffs, he batteries, he has amazing gravity, instant break, he fits well in so many party compositions. I'm even willing to pity his BT on his debut banner due to how long it lasts and Bartz being an early BT plus unit. First of all, you get RuPaul's Drag Race comments into this, you're probably going to get featured. I'm just going to say that now. But yeah, my only kind of take from this comment is that I don't think I would go pitying his burst on the debut banner, purely on the back of the fact that there are 2 other banners that you will probably want to be pulling on, at which point you could get it. I would hate to spend 125k gems and then get it on a ticket while pulling for Tifa, or get it on my first 5k while pulling for Galoof, or vice versa. That I would die if that happened, and I know what my luck is like. It would absolutely happen to me. But go all in for that LD, I'd say. Absolutely. Sakuraba Neku says 100 plus tickets. His full kit makes him a very useful and long-lasting Swiss Army knife, especially his gravity damage and that wind imperil in aura form, which can't be cleansed by the enemy. Something I should have mentioned earlier and probably got wrapped up in all the other reasons why, I was gushing about the imperil aura. But yeah, that's another thing. Might as well be a gilded debuff because the enemy can't get rid of it because it's not attached to them, it's attached to Bartz. Thanks to Halkine, Golbez and Kadajwar, I have enough tickets to try on this banner and gem Tifa. But if either Tifa LD shows up quick or Summerfest stuff changes things, more resources or etc., I might return to gems with gems to this banner since I'm also missing Penelo's LD. I'm not taking any chances with this because if Faris taught me anything, I ended up spending 200 plus tickets, realising how badly I wanted it and then gemming it. So with this one, I'm not taking chances. I am just going to go straight in with gems. But if other people feel that they can test their luck, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, I am of the opinion that it's fine to play with tickets and then go gems when you realise it. Just don't do it the other way around because then you've kind of gone all in at that point. Sergeant Tuffy says gems for sure. General rule of thumb for pulling in OO is that support characters tend to be more worth their weight in gems and DPS, since characters who only bring damage to a team comp tend to get power crept more quickly. It's true that if you're pulling for Bartz, it's because you want the BT, but I don't think it's entirely fair to say that he's bad without it. His LD auras are solid, the gravity effect that it gives his HP plus, while niche, can be a major game changer in the proper fights. It's just that the BT turns a character that is pretty good into being amazing. To say nothing of him being an early adopter of BT plus, keeping him one of the most valued characters in the game even up to today in JP. Bartz is the kind of character that explodes open your options for Lufenia. It's a lot easier to slot in more dated DPS characters or characters that can handle Lufenia roles when you've got someone like Bartz around to ensure that everyone's hitting for big damage the whole way through. The ability to widen your roster options in any given fight is incredibly valuable in a game like this. One of DFFOO's biggest complaints, and it's one that I actually share with the Lufenia era, is how restrictive some of the fights are. Like, it's like, oh, you didn't pull for this character, guess you're gonna have to skip it. Sometimes that's the case. I try very hard to like make sure that everyone is able to clear stuff through talking about the events on the back of the fact that, yes, there are other things that you can do. But like, by and large, like Sergeant Tuffy here says, if you've got a character that can make those options wider, it's valuable, and that's very true of Bartz. And then finally, G-Terra says, Gems. The next era of Lufenia Plus has been difficult for JP players at the start of the era with limited viable units, but this was also very much the case with Early Chaos and JP also. Why was Early Chaos much easier for global players? Foresight. The foresight to be able to pick up the key exceptionally strong, useful units and learning from the hardships and the clears of the JP player base. Bartz with his BT Plus is one of those pieces. He's very good now, strong auras, good rework, strong BT effect. He's very much a unit that makes almost any team better just by being in it. He hits reasonably well pretty much everywhere and makes your party do the same. In the future, he's an early aura support BT Plus unit who will help carry you and your party through some of those early Lufenia Plus events. Absolute fact. There were videos, there were content creators that were talking about like how much they disliked early Lufenia Plus, but obviously, like G-Terra says, as global players, we have foresight that JP players didn't have. Take advantage of it. That's what it's for. Like, the fact that we are behind, like, the byproduct of that is that we can see where their struggles were and try to circumvent that. And Bartz is one of those characters, because when he's released alongside Ace, he comes back so quickly that he never stops being a viable character, really. Like, only at the very end of regular Lufenia or regular Burstia, so like Yuna, X-Death, etc., do you see Bartz slightly less. But that's not to say that you don't see him. He's still good. So at that point, like, we're talking 8-9 months worth of viability. It's just not something you can pass up. So that's going to be all for today's video. Let me know in the comments below whether you're pulling for Bartz, whether you're pulling for Penelo. And actually, I'm very interested in those that aren't pulling for Bartz. Like, are you not pulling for Bartz? If you're not, let us know in the comments why that might be the case. Maybe you just don't like him. Maybe you just don't really like FF5. And perhaps you just don't particularly like pulling for characters that other people consider meta, or whatever word you want to use to describe that. Let me know either way. And of course, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications for any future videos I might be making, and tune in on Friday for #Bartz Day over on Twitch. It'd be lovely to see you all. Hopefully, Bartz is kind to me, because not only is he really good, but I am a massive FF5 fan, and I do love him very dearly, so hopefully he's nice to me. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you guys soon. Take care.